Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
What do financial institutions, the Federal Reserve, politicians, and bagworms have in common? Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville and Bowling Green. Your host, five-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome to the WorryFree Retirement, and for the past several weeks we've been covering the 4 financial risks associated with living too long, something we call longevity risk. And on today's program we're going to talk about our 4th risk, which is interest rate risk. Well, what is interest, and what is an interest rate? Who in the world came up with the idea of interest anyway, and why do we as a society need to earn interest and, yes, charge interest on or for our money? Well, Webster's dictionary defines interest as follows: a charge borrowed for money, generally a percentage of the amount borrowed. Another definition is the profit in goods or money that is made on invested capital. And my favorite, an excess above what is due or expected. Going back in time, people have acknowledged that the value of a dollar is real, and the fact that the dollar is loaned to somebody else, or the one loaning it, that person should be compensated since that money is no longer in their control. Now, our monetary system in the United States is recognized as such when we put into law back on December 23rd, 1913, something that Congress created, which was really called the Federal Reserve System. Now, for those of you who aren't real familiar with the Federal Reserve System, this was our founding fathers' worst nightmare come true. Basically, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation that has taken control of the nation's money supply. In his magnificent work, I've got this book here, it's a great book, on the Federal Reserve, entitled The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin says of Wall Street, the banking industry, and the federal government, and also the contractors who do business with the federal government, have all benefited immensely since they are the first ones to get their hands on the money that it's created. Now, we contribute to that system, particularly if you own a treasury bill or a treasury note. Really what that is we're loaning money. Basically, the Fed is in the business of selling IOUs. These are called treasury bills. But we are loaning money to the government in order to pay their bills. And we're going to get interest, which is very low right now. Now you say, well, is that a safe thing to do? Well, it's pretty safe, because guess who backs that up in case something goes wrong? You, the taxpayer. As a result, though, with all this printing of money and low interest, we've actually, number one, contributed greatly to the increase in the stock market, in my opinion. And secondly, if we're not careful, this is what the Fed tries to regulate, we could have much, much more inflation. In other words, because there's so much more money being printed, more money goes into circulation, that means your dollar doesn't buy as much anymore. So folks, whether you want to admit this or not, our economic system is built on promises. Promises that somebody is going to back up that dollar, and because everything is based on loans, everything, and something we're going to delve into called opportunity cost, it is all based on interest. Now, the dilemma, again, that we've created in this country by keeping interest rates so low is because savers, that's who this show is catered to, savers have really been left out in the cold. They've been earning 1-2% on their CDs or treasury bills, and then what many savers have done reluctantly have instead moved a lot of their money over to Wall Street trying to get higher returns, which for a saver is pretty risky stuff. Incidentally, there's a couple other books that you might want to read on this whole Federal Reserve issue and banks and interest rates. You might want to read Murray Rothbard's The Mystery of Banking. And then secondly, a pretty good book is by Barry Dykes called The Pirates of Manhattan. That's an interesting book. But anyway, all this printing of money and charging interest creates debt. Now, you say, well, hadn't debt improved since '08, Tony? Wasn't it the debt crisis that sent our economy down and resulted in the market going down 40%? Yes, it was. And you might say, well, isn't debt much better now? Haven't we learned our lesson? Well, sort of. Here's some estimates for you. It's estimated that back in 2008, there was about $870 billion of credit card debt. Now it's at $830 billion. It's a little better, but not much. Revolving credit back in '08 was $1.02 trillion. Now it's $1.04 trillion, so that's gone up. And here's the biggest. This is the one that over the years we're going to really find out what's going on, and that's student debt. Folks, in '07, there was not that much student debt. You know how much student debt there is now? It's nearly tripled, apparently, according to the experts. It's up to $1.4 trillion. This is according to David Adder. He's the chief macro strategist for Informa Financial Intelligence. You can Google all this stuff and find a lot of different statistics. The bottom line is, folks, our economy, the financial world, the financial institutions, the government, the politicians, and yeah, we'll learn later about bagworms, requires the circulation of money and the control of your money in order to make money on your money. Now, last night here in Louisville, by the way, we're recording this show in our Louisville studios on September 11th, 2018. But last night, I hosted a presentation in Louisville called The 4 Risks to Your Retirement and How to Deal with Them. And I shared this principle with the group about what the financial world doesn't want to talk about, and it's called lost opportunity cost. Now, it's not really that complicated. Lost opportunity cost simply means that when you spend or lose a dollar, all right, you're not just spending or losing the dollar, but you're also losing the interest that dollar could have earned for a long time. Now, in our practice, we're constantly trying to help people cut costs because we know if we can reduce your costs, that's more money in your pocket, thus reducing opportunity costs. There's 4 costs. We have insurance premiums that we have to constantly deal with. There's basically interest cost. We're going to talk about that today. There's fees. And then there's taxes. We call those financial headwinds. Those are the 4 major costs. And if you don't get a handle on those, folks, basically all that money you're giving away or losing, you're losing the dollar, but you're also losing the interest on that money. By the way, one of the Matt Stebbins in our office now, he does all of our search engine optimization. He does all of our analytics on what people are doing on our website. One of the things he's pointed out over the last several weeks, he says, Tony, one of the most common pages that people click on our website is how do we get paid? And I said, Matt, I think I know the reason for that. People don't understand how the financial world makes money on their money. So let's throw up this graphic here. And this is a cool graphic we created. This talks about how we get paid with the Worry-Free Retirement. And then we talk about the other guys. So basically in this graphic, you can see that there's 2 ways we get paid. From the sale of insurance products. And in this example, we're using a fixed indexed annuity, a no-fee, no-income rider annuity. There's a bunch of them out there, but we're just talking about that. We show the first-year average commission that's paid to any agent, but notice the commission is paid by the company, so your $250,000 is still working for you. No out-of-pocket cost. And assuming that grew at 5% in the next 20, 25 years, you can see what you're going to have. Now, you slide over to our new platform that we have, our Money Manage platform through Schwab, which we charge a whopping 0.6%. You can see that obviously we're creating a cost because we've introduced fees. And roughly over $40,000 over that same period of time is going to go in our pockets. And the effect, though, is a little higher than $40,000. Notice the decrease of your net account balance because, again, we've calculated that you lost interest on those fees. Now, here's where it really gets scary. Look over at the other guys. This is the average fee charged by most money managers, 1.5%. Look at the amount of lost wealth you're going to have just as a result of fees. Folks, this is using the same parameters, the same interest rates, but with these extra fees, you're in the 6 figures of lost wealth. So do opportunity costs have a huge impact on you? You bet. Before we take a break, here's a great book you might want to study. It's a college textbook, H.G. Heyman and Robert Bloom's masterful book, Opportunity Cost in Accounting and Finance. And again, here's how they define opportunity cost. Let's put this on the screen here, Aaron. It's defined as those benefits which could have been received had an alternative course of action been chosen. They go on to say that opportunity cost is determined by the most valuable benefits sacrificed. So when we come back, Many of you talk about interest in the bank and home loans. We're going to just take a deep dive in an understanding of not only interest rate risk from home loans, but also a relatively new product, one that we've used for years that's starting to get more and more traction, and how a third-party investor out there, a specialist that studies investments, is going to show us how this product can help offset interest rate risk. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm going to get the whiteboard out. You stay tuned. I'll be right back. Annuities. Some people love them and some people hate them. Regardless of how you feel about annuities, one thing's for sure, annuities are the only financial product that can guarantee an income you can never outlive. I'm Tony Walker, and regardless of whether you're thinking about buying an annuity or you have a current annuity that you would like me to review, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Since 9/11, we've written over 2,500 annuities, and we can help you by getting started now. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. I hope you're enjoying today's program. We're talking about interest rate risk. And basically, here's a great article. This gentleman's name is Roger Ibbotson, and we'll quote him a little bit because back in the late 90s, there was a product created by the insurance companies called a fixed indexed annuity. After 9/11, when my money management practice was on the skids because of the Twin Towers, incidentally, we're recording this show on 9/11, 2018, a little eerie to even think about those days. But basically, you remember after 9/11, the market really took a tumble. And at that point, I decided I need to find something safe for my clients, and I started researching these products called fixed indexed annuities. Now, since that time, we've become one of the leading writers of these products in the country. We've written over 2,500. I've had plenty of time to watch them play out. So some of the things this gentleman quotes, quite frankly, we've been saying for years, but it's good to have a third party quote about the beauty of these products. And basically he says fixed indexed annuities basically beat out bonds. Mr. Ibbotson goes on to say, let's just kind of put these quotes full screen, Aaron. His work around the idea that as you take on more risk in your portfolio, what he means, let's say you got a 401k and you got a lot of it in the market or in bonds and try to risk making higher returns, you increase the volatility and of course then you lessen the stability. We know that, okay? He says, I've always recognized you have to de-risk, and we see that bonds are not necessarily the way to go today because of low yields. It's pretty hard to have a falling rate environment today when yields are below 3%. He goes on to say the fixed indexed annuity as a contract issued in a guaranteed manner by an insurance company, I love those words, guaranteed, is a good way to offset, since it's benchmarked with the stock market index, rather than having interest rate risk. So let's see what he's talking about. And as someone asked last night, how can insurance companies do this? How come insurance companies with these contractual guarantees of annuities, how can they guarantee that interest rates will not affect the actual contract? So what I did is I just imagine an insurance company, and this is going to represent their assets. So an insurance company's underlying assets, for the most part, are in different types of bonds, okay? They could be short-term bonds, long-term bonds, mortgages, but generally, everything that's backing up the insurance company is really, really safe stuff. And you might say, well, Tony, wait a minute, you just said bonds can go down. Well, the beauty of an insurance company, what they're doing, because they have such a large asset base and so many different types of bonds with different types of grades and maturity dates, their rate of return, let's say in this example, the insurance company might say, overall, our total bond portfolio is making us 5%, all right, pretty decent. And then the insurance company has a spread, and that spread might be 2%. In other words, that's what they need to cover all their expenses. You know, they got employees, they've got staff, they've got to pay actuaries, they got reserves they have to set up. They pay agents like me commissions. That money has to come from somewhere. And the net effect of this, again, this is just an example, could be higher or lower. They say, okay, we've got 3% of profit. So you say, what's that got to do with a fixed index annuity? What they do, and this is very ingenious, what they do is they take that 3% and they go purchase options in the stock market. Options in the stock market. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to show you how these options in the stock market, regardless of what the stock market does, whether it goes up or down, how it's going to guarantee that you won't lose any money. But we need a clean whiteboard for this. You ready? All right, so here we are. We're going to imagine that we purchased, this was my wife here, she actually took out a contract. I told her, I said, honey, by the way, my wife is a nurse. Nothing against nurses. I love nurses to death. She's a great caretaker, but she could care less about caretaking money. She's told me, she said, Tony, I hate losing money. I hate messing with money. I want my money protected and I want to earn a decent interest rate. Boy, that is the definition of a saver if I ever heard one. So I told Susan, I said, let's do this, honey. We've got a little extra money here to invest. Let's take $100,000, all right, and let's put it in a fixed indexed annuity in your name. She says, hey, sounds good to me. How's that going to work? All right, here's how it works. So we took the $100,000. Now, with a fixed indexed annuity, we took this out last year, her contract date was issued on September 18th of 2017. So every year on 2018, 2019, every September 17th, they're going to value the contract with these options in the stock market. So everything's tied to her contract date. Remember that if you take out an annuity, it has a term, and that term is always tied to the contract date, which is your issue date. All right, so she put in $100,000. The S&P was at 2503 when she took this out, and it looks like the S&P, it's gone up, is going to be around 2,800. They're estimating this. Again, we're recording this on 9/11, 9/17, but they're estimating what it's going to be. And she said, what does that mean, Tony? I don't even know what the S&P is. And I said, honey, this is good news because this contract has a participation rate of 47%. That means whatever the S&P does this year, her contract year, they're going to multiply that by 47%. So thus, there's the growth. They're estimating her rate of return this year, this is with no risk, folks, is going to be 6.5%. And you say, well, Tony, is that going to happen every year? No, but it's going to happen this year. So now let's imagine next year, we're going to start off, all right? We're envisioning we start off again next year. Here soon, that would be 9/18/18, all right? And the S&P we know is at 2,800 in this example. Let's say, though, the stock market crashes. It just goes down. This could happen. Let's say it even goes down to 2,000. All right, quiz time. How much money does my wife lose as a result next year? Let's assume the market goes down. Here's the beauty. She doesn't lose a penny. So she still has, in this case, roughly $106,500 now. And at the end of the year, even though the market has crashed, she still has her $106,500. Now, this is a no-fee annuity. We have annuities that don't have any fees. She's going to love this. Now, the next year, here's the advantage. She starts out again. And the beauty is, unlike if you have the stock market, now you're behind the 8 ball, right? You're going to have to wait for the market to come back. Not a good feeling. In my wife's case, she gets to start at 2,000, all right? So let's say, you're going to say, wait a minute. Let's say it goes back to 2,800 again, all right? Basically, she's going to go right back and make another 6.5%. So what happens, folks, with a fixed indexed annuity, whether the market goes up or whether the market goes down, we really don't care. Whether interest rates go up or whether interest rates go down, we really don't care because over the long term, and again, I've done this for over 17 years, number one, your principal's protected, and number two, you will make money. Some years you won't make any. But what we found is over time, we've done very, very well with these. If you'd like to learn more about these products, I've written a great little booklet. It's called the Annuity Decision Guide for Savers. It's absolutely free. We can either mail you a copy, or better yet, why don't you just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Now, while there, you just find the little tab to download it. It's a free download. Again, it's the Annuity Decision Guide for Savers as well. You can even download our booklet, Mailbox Money for Life. And then after you download those, if you'd like to meet with me in person to discuss your situation, I'd be happy to do that. Well, we've been talking a lot about interest rate risk. We've been talking about people trying to chase after your money and holding on to your money and losing out on things. When we come back, I'm going to make a relation between what the Bible has to say about money and bagworms. Going to be some good stuff. Let me get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. You stay tuned. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Do you have a 401k, IRA, thrift savings account, 403b, or lump sum pension that you'd like to move to safer territory? Did you know that all the money you see on your 401k statement isn't really yours? Depending on your overall taxable income, the government has essentially a lien on your 401k that can tax as much as 40% of your money when you go to take it out. Tony Walker calls this the 401k tax tumor. For over 33 years, retirement specialist Tony Walker has helped thousands of savers worry less about money by creating game plans to deal with your tax tumor. Get control of your retirement by controlling the taxes owed on it. Schedule a free meeting to see if you can reduce your tax tumor and provide a guaranteed income you can never outlive. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, 5-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement, and we're at my favorite segment. I was at the workshop last night, and somebody said, hey, my favorite segment's that thing you do at the end about the Bible. So here we go. In my opening statement, we asked the question, what do financial institutions, the Federal Reserve, politicians, and bagworms have in common? You probably wondered what is the deal with the bagworms and what in the world do they have to do with money? And assuming you've never had to deal with bagworms, well, guess what? I have. In fact, we'll throw up a few pictures here, Aaron. This is outside my home. And outside my home, I have 2 identical evergreen trees planted side by side several years ago. And noticed at first glance, my wife said, hey, Tony, I think we got some bagworms out there on a tree. And I looked, and one of the trees, you can tell from a distance, they look fine, but if you get up close, one of them is perfectly healthy. But as we look at the other tree, upon closer examination, hanging off from these branches are something called bagworms. And what these bagworms do is they latch onto the branches. And I tried to read up on these things because, as you can tell, the branches are literally dying. And those bagworms literally choke the nutrients. They literally choke the life out of those branches so that nothing flows through the branches. And eventually, over time, the tree dies. Of course, I was running around spraying, trying to get stuff at the last minute. Hopefully, I've salvaged it, folks, but who knows, right? It may be too late. So over time, what happens is many of you don't know this, you've got financial bagworms that are literally strangling your money. These are called opportunity cost. They could be fees, taxes, stock market risk, interest rate risk, all these things we're talking about. And again, in many cases, not only do you maybe notice them, but you don't know how to deal with them. The good news is we do. Now you say, wait a minute, Tony, what's the Bible have to say about bagworms? Well, literally nothing, but it sure says something about costs. And yes, it is very prudent, and being a good steward, we want to understand these costs and how to deal with them. Jesus reminds us of this. Let's go to this full screen, Aaron. This is in Luke 14:28. Luke 14:28. And Jesus says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? You think about that. Yeah, that would be silly. You say, well, Tony, well, surely I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go about building a tower unless I knew what it was going to cost. But many of you are doing that. You're trying to save for retirement, right? This is the end game. This is a retirement planning show. You want to have enough money to enjoy retirement. The problem is you really don't know the cost to get there, nor do you know the cost to build this castle, whether it's your 401k or whatever, and how much of the bagworms, if you want to call it that, is going to suck the lifeblood right out of it. Proverbs 24:27 says, to first put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready, then you build your house. And you say, well, that seems odd. What are they talking about? Well, the point is, folks, back then they had fields, they had agriculture. That was going to provide the income. They didn't go build the house and then go out and see if they could grow something. No, you got to get your house in order first by getting your fields in order. That's why we recommend getting good savings plans in place. We make sure that you have protection. We make sure all these costs are down, because if you do that, your house will be in better order. So as we think about what the student debt will be, the shame of that, for instance, all the interest and the $60,000 in debt somebody might have, and then they get out with a college degree, let's say, and the only thing they can do is serve coffee or whatever. Folks, this is not thinking through the example of what we're talking about. Know the cost before you build the house. Know these things that can erode your wealth. Now you say, well, Tony, this is a tough place to do business. And the longer I'm here, I feel like I don't have any control over the world. And all I keep doing is chasing after the world's ways. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do to keep these bagworms of the world from choking me off from my relationship to God? And Christ, it's kind of interesting, specifically deals with this. And this is a warning shot over the bow if you're feeling this way. Aaron, let's go over to John 15:5. John 15:5, where Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. So Christian, you better be careful out there when you're doing business with the world. You have to understand the world's business. And you have to understand, and it's perfectly legal and ethical, the world is going to try to take as much money from you as they can get. And it's your job to figure out how to keep more of your money in your pocket. And you might say, well, Tony, what is it you do exactly? That's what we do. That's my mission in life, is to help savers try to worry less about money. And where we're unique over most financial firms, our job is to attack cost. I want to go after the bagworms of your life. I'm not interested in trying to make you 10 or 20%. Folks, that stuff's not guaranteed anyway. Why wouldn't we deal with the things that are choking or strangling your money? Risk, taxes, fees, interest rate risk, not having enough money to live on, the fear of running out of money. All these things I can help you with the Worry-Free Retirement. But you've got to take action. Here's all you have to do. Get up off your couch right now and give us a call. It's 877-499-WALK. It's a simple toll-free number. We're available 24/7. Or better yet, log on to our website at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Here's the best part. When you go to the website, all you do is you click on that little Let's Get Started button. Your information is shared with us. We're independent fiduciaries. We don't share your information with the big wirehouses or the banks. It stays confidentially within our offices. Then our office will contact you for a no-obligation appointment for you and I to sit down in person, face-to-face at either our Bowling Green, Kentucky office or Louisville, Kentucky office. After we meet, I'll put together a game plan, a written game plan that you can review to see if it's suited for what you're trying to do. If you want to move forward with our recommendations, you can. We've already talked about how we're compensated. In most cases, there's absolutely no upfront out-of-pocket costs to work with us. So you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. So again, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call and we'll be happy to talk with you in person. Well, between now and next week, I hope you've enjoyed today's program. I really have. But between now and the next time we see each other, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.